Welcome everyone to the Canadian Startup Series. My name is Saeed and I'm the founder and CEO of Nextstars. At Nextstars, at Nextstars, we are championing a concept we call Canadian entrepreneurship, which focuses on sustainability, community, cooperation, setting it apart from the competition-driven, revenue-first models often seen elsewhere. Today, we are here at Ancestral College through our Next Stars Alpha program, where we've been connecting students with real-life startup experience, giving them the practical tools to build sustainable, long-term businesses. I'm excited today to be joined by Rick Spence, our advisor, who brings a wealth of experience guiding a startup and helping them thrive. We are thrilled to share that the over 660 people marked their attendance on LinkedIn, which shows the interest around this concept, around Canadian entrepreneurship. And I'm happy to share that for those of you who couldn't make it today in person or you can't watch it live, we're going to upload this video on YouTube as well, and you can always go back to it. As for today's schedule, I will start with my presentation, which is loaded, and it will be followed by Rick's remarks, and that will conclude our LinkedIn live session. But for the students that have joined us here in person, we'll continue with reviewing the cases that you've submitted, and we'll try to validate the startup cases together in a collaborative process. We're excited to have you all here, and we can't wait to get started on this important discussion about Canadian entrepreneurship and the future we can build together. The first episode, we're going to talk about validating the startup idea. And it's very important as you're thinking about, do I want to embark on this journey? It's very important to have a systematic look at, is this an idea that you want to really get behind and allocate resources, both financial resources, but also your time and energy. So, without further ado, just a little bit of a journey about me and why am I doing what I'm doing. I arrived in Canada in 2011. Like yourself, I was an international student, like many of you. And I did my master's here in University of Windsor in engineering, but Rick also went to Windsor, so that we shared together. So I never worked as an engineer though. I worked in finance and in project management in oil and gas. And I started a startup in mental health around my personal experience and also around the need that there's so many young professionals accessing high quality mental health. We started in late 2014. The company was called Tranquil. It became a nationwide service offering and it got acquired in 2018 by a company called Humanity. So I went through the whole process of how I have an idea on a piece of paper, as engineers with some oil and gas experience entering, and my other co-founders were also all engineers, and we were entering a completely new field. So we went through the whole journey of trying to build, trying to validate some of our assumptions and building a business, and also do some fundraising. And since the exit, I've been really dedicating myself to supporting other entrepreneurs, trying to recreate the support that I receive from the community for my fellow entrepreneurs. And I'm an advisor at Next Canada, I'm an advisor at Manitoba Technology Accelerator, and Next Stars and Funds Farm, the two companies that we have, is also dedicated to support entrepreneurs that they have big dreams and help them to bring some of those startup ideas to reality and help them grow. So this is just a bunch of photos. The top one is actually a partnership that Nextstars has with Carbon Debits, which is a Dutch company, and it basically also reiterates our commitment to sustainability and to sustainable growth. So, first of all, when you're thinking about a startup, what constitutes a startup? What makes a startup different than a small business? Well, these definitions are really changing rapidly. But basically, the way a startup is typically separated from a small business is its focus on growth and its growth trajectory. And also the way typically startup companies are financed. The second part is changing rapidly. Now even the models for VCs or venture capital firms are changing. Instead of having one company paying the whole portfolio, now maybe the definition of success is maybe having three or four, 3x, 4x exits rather than having nine companies fail and one company doing the 20x. But still, typically a startup is a company that is focusing on growing as fast as possible and often prioritizing growth to profitability. Again, something that has been changing recently with interest rates and this whole new concept that's being developed, but still, like a startup is set for growth, whereas a small business is set for profitability, is set for lifestyle. Often they call it lifestyle business. Like let's say if you want to create an bakery, you want to create, like a small shop or a small contracting company. You're not focused on growth, but the startup is focused on growth. Also, the way startups are financed is typically they do get additional financing from at some point in their lifetime. They get financing whether from angels, and we'll talk about some of those sources, or venture capital firms, or like high risk investors. And specifically, the reason why they are getting finance is because they're all often poised to make significant growth over a relatively short amount of time and then getting exits, either selling to a bigger company or like getting acquired by a competitor, or in few cases going to the public markets. So when you are thinking of a startup idea, a company, a startup, a business, it starts with a problem. You need to be fixing a problem. And the problem cannot be a made up. So it's very important, but I've seen a lot of times, especially first time entrepreneurs, they start with an idea. Idea is almost what is important is that what problem are you solving for what customer? And is that a real problem or is this something that you just think exists and like it's not a big problem for the customer, the one who's actually going to pay for it? So we need to first and foremost validate the problem. The way you do that is by research. You need to do deep research, deep market research. You want to see if that problem, like basically, if it's a problem, you're not the first one. If you're the first one noticing that, then there's something wrong with what you're doing. Definitely, Word is a big place. A lot of the smart people out there. So you need to do research and see what other people have said about that problem. You find evidence for existence of that problem in your reports, in industry reports, whatnot have you. And also you need to talk to customers, do customer interviews. And finding also the customer is very important and it's also challenging. Because a lot of times the customer is different than the user. For example, if you are building an app for children, the user is the child, but the customer is the parent, right? Or if you're building, let's say, an application for healthcare, for physicians, a lot of times you need to get paid by the hospital or healthcare system or insurance company, but the user of the solution or app is the doctor. Or if you're a pharmaceutical, like product or medical device, a lot of times the customer is the patient, but they're gonna only do it if their family doctor prescribes it for them. So when you're doing these customer interviews, it's very important to really think hard that who's the customer and talk to that customer, primarily the one who's paying, putting their money where their mouth is, and understand their life, their challenges. What are they facing? Is the problem you're thinking is something that is top of their mind? What are they doing right now to fix that problem? And are they even open to possibly, giving a try to another solution? And it's very important when you're talking to customers, especially in Canada, because we are guilty of being nice. Nobody wants to say no to you. Nobody wants to say to you like, "Oh, it sucks." So you need to invite them to be open. You need to be in the sense, you need to be able to get them to talk to you, like give them the space to share with you, even if they don't like what you're doing. Give them the space to tell you. Like often you can make tweaks or make improvements or somehow change or tweak the idea to make it work. So it's very important to, first of all, validate that the problem is a real problem. After that, you want to make sure that the problem is a significant problem. And what do I mean by that? Is that there is a large number of potential customers that would want that problem to be fixed for them. And they are actually right now paying, spending money on fixing that problem. That's called market size. And there are two types of market sizing. There's top down and bottom up. Top down is you can find the high level numbers, industry reports or whatnot. Bottom up is finding the number of customers and kind of multiplying it by your business model, your assumed business model, and figure out if you had every single customer paying you, how much would that be? Rule of thumb, you want the market to be bigger than $1 billion or $2 billion. And why is that? Because as a startup, you're never ever going to have the full market. Even if in maturity you go through multiple rounds of fundraising, you get 10-15% of market share in the market you're trying to penetrate. That's called success. It's borderline monopoly at that point. So, and the startups, when they at the point of exit, they're basically a multiple of their revenue, depending on the growth trajectory they have, the IP they hold. Of course, the value is in the eye of the beholding, but there are rules or multiples that are norm in any industry. Typically 4, 5, 8x of the revenue. So if you are going to address a $1 billion market or a $100 million market, even if you get 15% market share, you only are having a $110 million revenue, which doesn't get you to that $1 billion valuation, which is the unicorn. If you're in the private market, or basically you're not in public market, but you have valuation seen by a private market at $1 million. So it's good to have a big market, like that. Even if you take a small piece, you still have a very sizable amount of revenue in your business. So rule of thumb, go for a market that's at least $2 billion to $3 billion. The more, the better. Also, you want to address or go into a market that is growing. You know that these reports you can find. This is a problem that people are more becoming aware of, or they're spending more money on. Whereas this a market that's shrinking. Like if you're in the market for like printing photos, maybe I don't know, but maybe that's a market that will be shrinking since Instagram, since digital cameras came into play. So you don't want to start a Canon when Instagram is kind of like coming into the market. You want to be in the business that is in the market that is actually projected to grow over the next decade or so. Also, you want to see who else is in the market. Typically, unless you have access to huge sums of money, it's not generally a good idea to enter a market that has a dominant player. Okay, so like it's not a great idea to start another social media company at this point, right? So it's just not a great idea unless you have a very specific niche or you have the money to be able to penetrate the market. So ideally, you want to enter a market that doesn't have a very big winner, but it's a growing market, and there are some players that can even do an M&A or can buy you out, but it still is inherently fragmented. That's ideally a better market to build a startup. Also, still when you are also like validating your market, you want to talk to the customer and figure out, like if they're kind of using other solutions, how much are they paying for? Are they happy with it? Do they see that? Because ultimately, when you're making money or your solution, you're either creating new revenue for the customer or saving money for them. Money does not just get created. They don't like pay you, but they do pay you if you're a charity. But for a business, you need to either make more money for them or save money for their organization, company, or just like, you have to deliver some sort of value to them. So, in terms of this, kind of is a good segue to pricing. So, when you're thinking of your price, typically you don't want to be the most expensive player in the market. Gen rule of thumb, again, like has a lot of like it depends on the IP, it depends on the market. But you want to be like somewhere in the middle. You don't want to be the cheapest. I don't think it's a great idea to be the cheapest in the market because often you need to figure out what the customer thinks about it. Is them like do they care about the price? Do they care about the quality? And that helps you also to segment your customers, figure out what kind of customer in that big pool of customers are you going to go talk to first. And also, you want to figure out, what other competitors are charging for. What is their pricing? And if, for example, you're entering the market, you figure out that the cost of delivery for you is $120, and the customer is actually their price for sales is 100. Well, it means that you need a lot of money and a lot of scale to be able to compete with them. I give you an example, which is not very relevant to startups, but at the beginning of COVID, right, there was a shortage of masks, for example, in Canada and everywhere. So if you were a small player, you could still bring, N95s and get an approval on them, and then you could bring like 10,000 of them and sell them on a huge margin. But once it became a commodity, you needed to order like a million pieces in order to be able to compete with, let's say, McKesson, right? So in your competitive analysis, you need to figure out how much is the customer charging and then do some assumptions and calculations to figure out how much are they making per transaction, what's their unit economics, and also figure out then if that's the cost of delivery, the cost of goods sold, let's say for lack of a better word, what's the cost for you to acquire a customer? And how much money are you making on that customer? We call that CAC, customer acquisition cost, to LTV, which is lifetime value of a customer. So ideally, it's okay if you lose money at the first. At the beginning, it's like the early stages of your startup. If it costs you $300 to bring in a customer, you're only making 200 out of it. But you need to have a trajectory for the customer acquisition cost going down and your lifetime value going up. If your hundredth customer costs you the same amount of money to bring in than your first customer, there's a problem, right? So you need to ideally also be in a space that people talk about it with each other. You get some network effects, you get customer, you get brand recognition, and you get social media presence about you. So this really inevitably brings your customer acquisition cost down because you will have customers that come to you instead of you chasing them through your marketing or sales. And your lifetime value should increase because you can figure, you can learn to your customers so much so that they're gonna become like literally a lifetime customer of yours. That they come back to you. They send their friends and family to. So if you cannot forecast that in your idea, you can't foresee that happening in your idea, then that's a problem. That's not a good idea to get into. And I have like a concept that I call one versus a thousand. If if you are doing 1,000 units of work and it costs you the same amount of doing one, that's also not typically a great startup, right? So you wanna figure out a startup that has some economies of the scale. I.e., it's kind of think of it as a snowball. As it's coming down, it gets it gets weight, it gets speed, it gets traction, it gets momentum. So let's say you have an idea, the problem is validated, the market is big, you've thought about it, you can figure out, find ways to bring down the customer acquisition cost, increase the lifetime value, the competitive, is fragmented market. You talk to customers and everybody's like, yes, I like that. So you have to figure out what is the regulatory landscape. Can you legally even do that in the market you're trying to penetrate? I think startups shouldn't be overly worried about legal requirements because often the regulator is behind innovation. And if you do make money, you can also sometimes bend. The good story of this is Uber. Like it started in different cities, had a bunch of lawsuits, but also guess what? They had money to fight those lawsuits. They made themselves, into the texture of a bunch of cities that they were in. But if you're building something that is inherently illegal, or there's a huge regulatory burden, you need to take that into consideration. A good use case or good industry for this particular is health. In particular, you have FDA, you have Health Canada. In Europe, you have MDR numbers, the CE mark. Each market has its own different regulatory classifications of devices, privacy laws. It's just a good idea to have an understanding and then pick and choose your battles and also figure out is this something that really I can even think about it. There's a lot of fintech ideas that like if you talk to the legal experts, they love them talking like it's you have anti-money laundering laws, with KYC, it's just a lot of complications. But again, as a startup founder, our job is to be a little bit overly excited and overly optimistic. So it's important to find a balance. Another important criteria that we look at very closely at Next Steps when we're deciding do we want to work with the founder or not. Is founder problem fit? What do I mean by that? You've all heard about product market fit. It's very important, you know. But I think, believe that a team, especially for the early stage of startup, it means it all. So if you have the right team, often you can fix a lot of the problems. I look at the team and figure out what skill sets do they need to bring this idea to life, and then what are the gaps that they have in their skill sets. So, if I wanna send people to Mars, say in the case of Elon Musk, right? What do I need? What skill set do I need to have on the team? I want to cure cancer. Can I do it by myself? What do I need to bring? And this is when you really think hard. Because also started with a team sport. What co-founders do I need to convince on my vision and my mission and my vision to join me, give me their invaluable time in exchange for equity in a business that's going to become so successful that they can justify working on it right now because in the early stages, like often you're going to just compensate them with equity. So it's very important for startups to think what skills they lack in their team, and are they equipped to bring the idea that they're thinking of bringing to market to life. I think another very important factor is the scalability. That's 1 to 1,000, but also how easy it is for a company to scale. And there's no right answer. Like a company like Uber, it is scaled, but they have to kind of reinvent themselves and redo a lot of things in every city that they went into, right? So there are some scaling challenges, which also like not every company has been able to survive that. For example, in the case of Bolt, like another company, European company that went bankrupt last year. They were basically renting out scooters and bicycles in every European city. And I saw them everywhere. But it's probably like wasn't as easy for them to scale and maintain, like 10,000 rides at a time. So these are things to take into consideration. How easy for it is the ability for me to go to different markets? Part of that is operations, regulations. Do I need to get what do I need as a Canadian company, for example, to sell in the States, to sell in the Middle East, sell in Africa, in Europe? Am I gonna face, do I need to redo regulations in every city, in every province, in every country? And how can I leverage my brand recognition or my network effects as I'm kind of going through the stages of scale? Anyhow, so these were some steps that startups founders should take when they're at the very early stages of their innovative idea process. Definitely, one needs to think before they start something. But one should not overthink when they're starting something. Because if you really think too hard, you're not gonna ever start. It's often you'll find reasons why not to, because you're inevitably in the beginning stages of your idea, you're going from a status quo to you're picturing a different vision, you're picturing a new world, and inherently there is some resistance, and you need to spend a ton of energy. Think systematically. If you wanna get into a startup, this is the thing you pick to go on. The startup is built
to become big. We have to have a big place. Otherwise, it's a lifestyle business. And when you're building a startup, money brings money. Bringing investors, bringing advisors,
Advisors, accessing different sources of capital is generally a very, very good idea. One we will talk about maybe in another episode of Canadian startups. And with that, I want to thank you and thank the audience. And invite Rick to the podium for his remarks as we will use some of these concepts when we are working on your cases. Thank you so much.
maybe a little old fashioned today and working notes. I was the start as I needed to memorize my information, but I want to drill down a little bit today on that actual process of validating questions you ask, who you talk to, how do you have the nerves to do that. Um, One of I love the little closing remarks. You think before you start. That sounds obvious, but everybody does it. Don't get too long because opportunity finishes over time. And if you're going to think big, which is when we look at the characteristics of the company, talk about the entrepreneurs, don't think big enough. And so it's really important that as you develop your business idea, you say, how far can we push this? How can we do this? Let's assume we have all the money in the world. What could we do? It's a really good exercise. To go into this, to start thinking bigger. That's a little lot. So I want to just basically focus a little bit more on build down on idea generation and validation. It comes from my experience as a journalist, covering entrepreneurship, myself, I've been working with startups and with pharmaceutical startups, and covering them for 40 years. And I still interview entrepreneurs people we started a podcast, which you are all invited to take a look at and listen to those episodes. And tell me what a great job I do. Entrepreneurs learn in so many ways when it comes to business ideas. They learn from observation, they learn from personal experience, they learn from family experience. Entrepreneurs are often growing up in entrepreneurial situations, and so they're learning all the time. They learn from talking to other people, they learn from actual market research and different markets. And most importantly, this is covering providing with ideas. So all of these research that you do, all of the experience you have, it helps create a business idea. But it becomes a better business idea when you combine two or more concepts. For example, you business idea. I'm going to build cheaper housing for the people. And that's great. But that's a job. That's not a business idea. Nothing wrong with a job. But let's examine it a little bit more. Let's push this idea. So let's combine the need for housing with other timely trends. How can AI help us produce better, cheaper houses faster? We've been looking at that. How can we use 3D printing to build houses on site quicker? People are starting to do that. Lots of good skill for pioneering, for getting new concepts up there, and making it work. So, how can changing legislation help? And that's in terms of we're seeing more cities, including Toronto, enabling people to put up more than one home on a standard residential lot now. Call them granny flats, call them tiny homes, but nobody's doing it. Why? Because we haven't figured out the business case. There's not enough entrepreneurs working on that project. we've actually come up with these solutions yet. So it's a wide open area for innovators, entrepreneurs, and real entrepreneurial hustle. So if you have a great business idea, that's the easy part. There's no shortage of startup opportunities out there or startup ideas. The problem isn't really finding ideas. It's filtering ideas, filtering out the weak ones, so that you have only the highest and most valuable ideas, that whole thinking big thing, that you can move forward with. And that's why smart people call their business ideas a thesis or a proposal. It's not a conclusion. You're just starting out to explore the marketplace. So you have to see that as part of the startup journey. It's not your business idea is not a finished idea. It's just a notion to be kicked around until it turns into a new shape and finds a new purpose in life. So this is called vetting your idea or validating your idea. It's the most important thing that entrepreneurs do. Entrepreneurs connect new trends, changing market needs to create business opportunities. That's the job of a startup. You're not supposed to be a mini business yet. You're supposed to be finding the right niche, and that's what startups are for. And that's why startup entrepreneurs are so valuable. They're the ones who combine their experience with market needs and new ideas and come out with viable business plans that can make work. It's tough work, it's demanding work, but it can be fun, and it's the essential part of building a successful new business and creating wealth for your family, for your team, and your business. The goal of validation is to connect your idea to the neediest and most valuable market niche you can find. I'll give you a good example of this shortly. But be warned that this can be a long process. It can take months or even years. It's matching your product to the right market is the essential step to take to guarantee future success. So having studied a lot of entrepreneurs over the past 30 years, I believe there's 4 key steps to validating your idea. First, you come up with the best business idea you can. I've given you a few ideas about how to do that. Find an inefficient marketplace, a stubborn problem no one seems to be able to solve, and figure out a solution that no one else has done before. Often that's done by matching the problem that you've identified with new technologies or other trends. Very often this is what happens when you have unique life experiences that enable you to understand niche markets and see connections that other people don't. Sometimes the sheer act of coming to a new market from a different background, a different culture, a different country, a different cultural background, can help you identify these opportunities and see connections that other people miss. But it's those unique life experiences. If you want someone to come up with a better wrench, ask a plumber. A plumber that I know has started a global business to produce a better plumbing and piping system. One much easier to maintain will last forever. Because it takes someone in the field to know what's wrong with current marketplaces. One of my favorite Canadian entrepreneurs is a guy named Ron Foxcroft of Hamilton, Ontario. He's a basketball referee, and he was once refereeing an Olympic qualifying basketball game in Brazil to determine the teams from South America that would go to the Olympics. In the last minute of the game, it's really close to like 1 point apart, and someone on the visiting team commits a foul. So Ron blows his whistle to stop play and gets free throws. His whistle jams, the bead jams, in the little slot of the whistle. It's the last few seconds of play. No one hears his whistle. The play continues. The other team wins. And at that point, that's when Ron Foxcroft, who runs a trucking company in his day-to-day day life, that's when he decided that if he lived through the next 24 hours, he was going to build a better whistle with one that wouldn't jam. And now it's the Fox 40 whistle that's sold all over the world, the best-selling whistle of all time. It is moved into camping goods and all sorts of things like that because necessity breeds great ideas. Second step, validating your idea, is to talk about your ideas with other people. A lot of startups hesitate to do this. They worry about someone stealing their idea, so they keep it close to their chest. They don't talk about it. It's their secret. They're precious. The truth is, most ideas are worth zilch, especially if you keep them in the dark. The value of your idea is in using it as a starting point, a launch pad, to come up with better ideas as you talk to key people in the industry, seek out their feedback and support. Ideas flourish and grow in light, and that's where they develop energy. So you have to bounce the ideas around with other people, throw these ideas at the wall to see what sticks, stretch them in new directions. Ideas are alive, they are kinetic. They are always moving and always changing. The more you talk about them, the more they grow, and the more pertinent and useful and valuable they become. And generally, you don't have to worry about people stealing your ideas. The real problem for startup entrepreneurs is getting people to listen to your idea, to take any interest in it at all, let alone expecting that they're going to dedicate their life to beating you to developing your idea. Your need for feedback as an entrepreneur trumps any fear that you should have about talking about your ideas out loud. So who do you take these ideas to? You take them to anyone who can help. Could be your parents, an uncle or aunt, their lawyer, former professors. Here it says there are lots of professors might know. Call up strangers in the field that you're targeting. Seek out entrepreneurs who've done work like this before. It's never been easier to find people through the internet. So you feel free to cold call and see what happens. Identify decision makers in companies that you've identified as being key to your target market. The idea of calling entrepreneurs is really important because every entrepreneur remembers, every successful entrepreneur remembers every single person who helped them when they started out. They're very grateful to those people, and they pay it back to those people by helping you, by helping the next generation of entrepreneurs. So don't be afraid to call up even successful entrepreneurs. Some of them will make time for you. Not all of them, can't guarantee that, but some of them will, and they'll be grateful for the opportunity to do that. So you've got to ask, beg, or plead for 15 or 20 minutes of their time. You don't really want to take more than that. Your hope is they'll give you more, because that's a magic market signal. But you want to be as the least bit disruptive as you can to their schedules. If you can't explain your idea in under 5 minutes, then you're not ready to talk to people. So you've got to be able to do that. And that leaves 10 or 15 minutes for questions and new ideas. And you've got to be taking notes. No one can remember a conversation 10 minutes later. We don't have that kind of attention span, let's face it. So take notes from your meetings, send a thank you note afterwards, and pay attention to the people who've been really helpful because you want to talk to them again. The important thing is that you not develop a lot of time developing an unvalidated product or service model. There's lots of people who spend years tinkering with the new idea. They've got, their secret invention in their basement, right? And these lone wolves rarely succeed precisely because they're not getting the market feedback that creates champions. And these lone wolves rarely succeed because they're not getting the feedback from real users and potential customers. I have a friend in California who's a pioneer in Silicon Valley, a guy named Steve Blank. He's an engineer. He's started multiple startups, and then he's become one of the most thoughtful analysts of the startup process and really developed the ideas behind the lean startup that some people will have heard about and may be following today. So Steve Blank was one of the first people to identify the true purpose of a startup, that it's not a mini business, but it's a process of searching for the right business model. Steve has spent the last 30 years telling entrepreneurs to get out of their office and talk to potential customers. So if you need an excuse for calling people up, say, Steve Blank told you to. His mantra is, there are no answers in your building. You got to get out of your office. The answers are out there in other people's heads. You have to unlock them. There are no answers in your office. Once you've heard that, it's kind of obvious and trite, but it's very true. And yet so few people pay attention to that. When you find that when you're actually doing what the experts say you should do, it's not like you're following the crowd. Most people hear that advice and ignore it. So those who actually do it have a super advantage. I was talking to an industrial designer in Oregon. Why was I doing that? I belong to another thing called Lunch Club, where business professionals talk to random business professionals chosen by AI 2 or 3 or one time a week. Lunch Club is a really valuable tool, which is why I'm giving them a promotion. And it's perfectly free. I'm not sure what they're doing, taking all my data and selling it, I guess, to somebody. But they'll let you sit down and talk to interesting people. So I was talking with this guy in Oregon who's an industrial designer. He's a freelance industrial designer who goes in and helps companies get over tough innovation tasks. He puts processes in place, helps them come up with things. He's got a list as long as your farm of various products he's designed for both small businesses and big ones. And I was talking to him about validation in preparation for this talk a couple weeks ago. And he assured me his experience matched mine, that getting feedback is that everyone loves to innovate and do innovation theater, pretend they're innovating, but getting feedback, going out and talking to customers, asking them the right questions. That's something nobody likes to do, not the big companies, not the small companies. So his job was basically to be a nag and say, okay, that's a great idea. Let's test it to see if it will work. And that's the process that basically he has to bring to all his clients. Is the idea that we're not experts in what our customers want. The customers, obviously, are the experts. When you put it that way, it answers itself. So the idea is to get out there and talk to people and to the customers to get the market feedback that you need. Customers are dying to be asked what's wrong with my product. How can I help you get more done? How can we help you get things done more quickly or less expensively? The discovery process isn't just about your idea. It's about helping your market, your target market, achieve the results they're looking for. And they'll have lots to say when you ask them. The lean business movement and the lean startup grew out of lean business, which came from the automobile manufacturing and specifically Toyota. The lean business movement starts by asking, if we're going to fix a process, let's not start with the process, let's start with what is the job that needs to be done. And now look for fresh answers that take us down new paths that will actually save us time and money. So you're in the discovery business as a startup entrepreneur, and you do have to be conscious of the results that your customers are trying to achieve. Not asking questions like these can be fatal, like that lone tinkerer in his basement. Most companies are more comfortable just moving forward with their own ideas and, keeping the negative vibes away. And that's why most startups and big companies suck at innovation. They don't realize that asking for constant feedback is a superpower. The third step, we're halfway there, the third step is you match your product with the right market. And I talked with a company about this just last week at the Start of Canada podcast. Origato is a company in Winnipeg run by a mother and son team. They're immigrants from Brazil. Rosario, the mom, used to send her mom back in Brazil birthday cards, but the mails between Canada and Brazil are slow, and they always arrive late. So she found a way to send her mom an electric screen that she could program from her desk in Winnipeg, so that she could send new greetings all the time. They'd always be there right on time. And then she thought, as people saw her system, thought that was cool. They said, you could build a business around this. So she thought, well, That would be cool. So she and her son Diogo spent years tinkering with her technology, just looking for the right market that would turn it from a tool, a personal tool, into a business. Was it a consumer product? No, they learned it wasn't a consumer product. We already have Facebook and WhatsApp, and they're cheap and they're free and they're easier to do. So that's not it. Is it a business productivity tool? No, they learned it wasn't going to be that. Could it be used in education? There was, they spent a lot of time looking at the education market, and some people were very interested. But here's what we know about the education market. They hate innovation. They have no budget for innovation. You can spend a long, they have no money at all. So you can spend a long time. You can make them a great offer, and they still won't buy your product. So that wasn't the right market either. So, what else was there? And then they got the idea about connecting consumers with brands when they're in a grocery store so they can learn more about this stuff on the shelves in front of them. And that was a possibility, but their business plan involved having people put their cell phones near a near field communications device. It was expensive. So the average box of breakfast cereal didn't have a high enough price point to just justify this kind of a tool out there in the field. So they had to look to find brands with communication issues and needs that had more money to spend than the average consumer packaged good company. So they now describe after this journey, they now describe their market niche this way, that their market is health and wellness consumer brands that are stocked in more than 10,000 stores. So these are established brands with money, with well established, so they've got good profit margins that enables them to invest in building up more robust communication channels. And they're now negotiating with several of these companies who are trying to find new ways to communicate their products, unique and sometimes complicated benefits to qualified customers. So Origato's market is now very specific, but they knew that they needed to find this market, but what they didn't know was that it would take 5 years. So Diogo, when he started working with his mother, he was a 16-year-old in high school, and now he's graduating from college and working full-time in the company. Will they be successful? We don't know yet. They have some small brands testing out their products. They haven't sold to any of the big fish yet, but they do have revenue coming in. And they now have a dozen employees at Origato. But what they have that's more important is a clear market vision. They knew who their best prospects are, so they can focus all their marketing on just one niche. The ability to concentrate is so important. Concentration gives you focus, and it gives you confidence. And that's what the startup journey is all about. In the beginning, they made a mistake that a lot of entrepreneurs do, so I want to share this one with you. They're very good about revealing the things they learned, as a lot of entrepreneurs are. Giogo told me that when they met with a potential investor a few years ago, they proudly told the investor that virtually any business in the world could benefit from using their communication system. The total addressable market, practically infinite. They were very proud of that. And then so Giogo was shocked when the investor said, well, that sounds like a big problem. And it's a mistake that many entrepreneurs make. You can't sell to the world. It's an expensive business. It's a big place. There's too many people with too many different needs. As a startup entrepreneur, you have limited resources. So you have to pick a market segment, a tiny slice. So the job of a startup is to identify the tiniest, wealthiest slice of the market that wants and needs your products. Don't sell to the world. Sell only to health and wellness consumer brands that are found in more than 10,000 stores. Finally, step 4, you now have clarity of thought and a clear market in mind. Now you create a model, a minimum viable product, and you test the hell out of it. asking lots of questions that demonstrate your common goals. How can we make this better, cheaper, easier to use? Test, test, test. The test, you go back to all the people who gave you feedback along the way and ask them to take your product for a ride. Try it out, take a test, you use it at work, keep pressing for all the feedback you can. Does it do the job? And these companies, as your test markets, offer them huge discounts as early stage clients. Do everything you can to keep the dialogue moving and two-way. This is where the magic happens, where you finally achieve that elusive goal of product market fit. Above all, I want you to think of entrepreneurship as a team sport. It's no place for lone wolves. Sometimes it feels like the whole world is against you, but that's because you're not out there talking to the customers who need you. When you find the right market fit partner, you realize there are lots of people rooting for your success and willing to help. So reach out to as many of these people as you can for feedback and answers. Put them on your advisory board. Um, uh, make them champions in your company. Name your meeting room after them. Whatever you can to solidify your relationship with these people. Keep the feedback going because the people who give you product market fit are the people who are going to build that wealth for you and your families. Entrepreneurship is a team sport. Thank you very much. I'm going to say that I'm going to close things off here and introduce the students we're going to work with. And thank you very much, LinkedIn group and YouTube audience, for paying attention and keep in touch with Next Stars through all the social media channels.
Thank you, Rick. I again want to apologize from the LinkedIn audience because apparently the voice quality wasn't great. It's because of the echo. We do apologize. We try to edit the video and re-upload it on YouTube, and we'll share it in our social media. Thank you so much, Rick. Thank you for the students, and thank you the LinkedIn audience. We please follow us on our social media channels, and looking forward to having you in the next.